Well, let's start with dad bod. How does that?
This was like weeks ago.
Oh, right. Now
I slimmed down a lot. I'm back to playing weight.
Pre-season dad bod.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We still have a month and a half to get perfect shape, perfect physique.
How does being a dad change you as a pro soccer player?
Oh man, gives you a whole nother purpose. Sometimes when you're young, in your career, you're selfish. You know, you play for yourself, you play for your teammates, of course, but getting married, having a kid, and having a kid that you look at him and sometimes you see yourself. It gives you a whole new perspective on life. It gives you a whole new challenge to be able to try to play as long as you can to make sure that he sees you play. And so for me, it's like being able to provide for him, being able to provide for my family, and having a whole new purpose for wanting to play and wanting to continue to be the best is something that's extremely motivating and also extremely humbling.
So how long are you going to play then? I
think Tom Brady. I don't know how old Tom is, but he's
43.
Yeah, that sounds good. There was a guy actually in Asia that's like 52.
A legendary Japanese player, yes, 52 years
So my
old.
goal was Tom Brady, 45. Now my goal is the Japanese guy, 52.
Wow.
If I get to 50, then I'll
How
be
old
doing
would your son be when you were 52?
He would probably be, let's do a little
might be your
math,
teammate,
carry the one.
21.
I'm trying, it would be a LeBron situation, I think.
Okay.
He would probably be about 18.
Great. You guys could be the Griffeys of Major League Soccer.
That's the goal.
All right.
My brother already played in the league, so we have the brother-family connection, now the father-son connection. That might be the first time, actually.
Father-son on the same field in MLS?
On the same field.
Surely
maybe on the same field ever in soccer.
Yeah.
I don't know. We need to research that.
We need to research.
Do we have
If only we were a big company like ESPN, they could afford that. So, look, if I look at your career, I could describe you as a journeyman. If I said journeyman, would you take that as a negative or a positive?
I would take it as kind of just like a description of a career. I don't really look at it as positive or negative. It's funny. It's funny because I've had this conversation actually with a few guys, and if you look at the career of, let's say, players that have played 15 to 20-year careers, and like let's take out the Totis and the guys like that. You look at certain players, and they've played on quite a few different teams. I mean, like, would you describe Zlatan as a journeyman? I
think you could, but I get the point you're making.
Right. So for me, it's fun because I don't take it as an insult, right? Like, it is what it is. In MLS, especially, you have to have a little bit of perspective because in salary cap leagues where you have to be cognizant of maybe a player's age, maybe a player's salary, do we have a replacement for this player, then players are always expendable. And especially in MLS, you see rosters turnover almost every year. And guys that have longevity are guys that can play for different teams. And like, I'll give you examples of like Graham Zusi and Matt Beasler, right? Guys that have really established themselves in Kansas City. They've always made themselves valuable. They have a really special bond with Peter Vermees. He's been their coach for almost their entire careers. So they look like one club guys, right? But then you look at the other side of it and you have guys like a Jeff Lorenowitz, my fellow ginger brother, who has played on numerous other teams in MLS, but he's won championships, and he's always been looked at as a really valuable player. So journeyman, maybe most people would look at it as a negative, but I don't really look at it as a positive or negative. I just look at it as a word that people throw around to try to describe guys' careers. But one guy, Kai Kamara, come on. My boy Kai, journeyman.
Okay. And that we meant in a good way.
In a very good way.
Right, okay. How would you describe your time in Chicago?
I would describe it as a little bit frustrating and a little bit of, I would say, what could have been. That's the question I would ask about my time in Chicago, because I think we had a lot of necessary pieces to be successful. I think we had a lot of talented players, but for whatever reason, we were very inconsistent. And that was the frustrating part. We started off really well in 2017 when I look back on that season. That was one of the most fun times I've ever had playing in MLS on that team because we played some amazing soccer. We scored some beautiful goals. We were on top of the league for a long time, always fighting for first or second place in the East along with Toronto. And then we kind of fell off towards the end of the season, but we made the playoffs for the first time in however many years it was. And then we got smashed by my former team at the Red Bulls. But you thought that we would take that season and really be a springboard for us to be successful for the next couple seasons, but we were inconsistent. And we never really built on that success, and that was what was frustrating.
How do you explain, in your mind, that inconsistency?
I don't know. I mean, I've looked at it, I've thought about it a lot, and I think in general in MLS, you know, there's always turnover on rosters, but I think in general with us, we had a lot of turnover. We kept a lot of the same, I guess you would say, spine of the team the same, but a lot of the other parts changed a lot. And, you know, I don't think we ever really found out what our real identity was in Chicago. And I think all the best teams usually have an identity. They usually have a calling card, something that you can point to and say, well, this is what they're amazing at. And so for us, I think we were just inconsistent, and we never really set that identity. One game, we would beat the champions Atlanta 5-1 or 5-0 at home, and we would look amazing. And then the next day, we would lose to FC Cincinnati at home 2-1, and the expectations would just be like, it would be like peaks and valleys, and we could never find that really consistent level. So that was always frustrating. I'll always look back on that and ask myself what could have been.
Did you want to stay in Chicago, or were you ready for something new?
It's a little bit of both. I think when I have the conversation with my wife, you know, you always say that once you're not successful somewhere, you want to try to make it successful. And I was not ready to give up on Chicago. And if they would have had me back, then I think that was my first choice. But the writing on the wall, so to speak, was kind of that there was a lot of uncertainty going into the offseason. There was a lot of uncertainty with what was going to happen with the club, with the coach. So when you don't have answers and when you're looking for answers, sometimes they're out there in the form of a club that you're really excited about and that you hear about interest and you really want to be a part of that. And so when the writing was on the wall in Chicago and I found out about the interest from Nashville, I got really excited. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was eager to start a new project because while I have played for a few teams, never played for an expansion team. And that was something that really motivated me, and it's really challenging to me to try to be somewhere from the get-go. And Nashville was that challenge and the right city for me.
Is that why Nashville's the choice, just because it's something new?
Numerous other factors. I spoke with the head coach. I spoke with the sporting director. The project that they're trying to build in Nashville is one of very big dreams. And they're trying to make that city a soccer city. And I think that from the buzz that we've already found out about with the fans, the buzz that we have within the stadiums, the buzz that all the sports teams in Nashville create, that's something that I think is very, very bright for the future. But also getting closer to the South, getting closer to my family in Orlando was really important. And so I think they say happy wife, happy life, and that's certainly a factor as well.
What's realistic for Nashville in year one?
I think it's realistic to try to win a trophy. I don't know what trophy that is. Could it be the MLS Cup? Could it be the U.S. Open Cup? Supporters Shield? Maybe. I never like to put I never like to draw a hard line in the sand and say that we're not going to have a successful season if we don't do that. We're an expansion team. I'm sure on the outside, expectations will be lower. But for me, I'm a competitor. For all my teammates, we're competitors. We want to win. And so if we're not going into the season with the expectations of stepping on the field to win every game, to try to win every trophy that we play for, we're not doing our job. And I think we're doing a disservice to our fans and to our owner and to our staff and everyone associated with the club. So every club should start with the dream of winning MLS Cup and winning trophies. Now, we'll see throughout the season if that's going to be realistic or not. But right now, I haven't even stepped on the field with my new team. So I don't know what we have. I don't know what we need. But in my head, I'm thinking trophies.
We were talking about the league kind of in general terms earlier in the interview. There's been a lot of discussion about spending in the league. Mm-hmm. Should this league expand its spending or restrict its spending?
Expand, of course. If you want to preach and talk about being one of the best leagues in the world, then guess what? That costs money. And it has to be said that I think the people in the front office at MLS have done a fantastic job of growing the league. When I came into the league in 2006, there were 10 teams, and there were barely any soccer-specific stadiums. And I look at where we're at now, Bank of California Stadium. I look at what they're doing in Atlanta. I look at what they've done in Seattle and Portland. I look at all of these things that have happened, and I'm just so impressed with the things that are happening and continue to happen. But we have to continue to raise the bar. The bar has to be continued to be raised. You have so many different amazing players that come into this league. The next process is organically more money has to be involved, and that's how you get the best players.
When we measure this league, so often we measure it up against the Mexican league. When does MLS overtake Liga MX?
I think it'll happen in the next 5 years. I've seen some signings that have happened in MLS, even this offseason, that I'm really impressed with. some of the best strikers that Liga MX has coming to MLS, some of the best midfielders that Liga MX has coming to MLS. But I always go back to the same thing, and you have to talk about the salaries and the salary restrictions here in MLS, and they don't have those in Liga MX. I think it was Peter Vermees, if my memory serves me correct, saying when he was preparing to play CONCACAF Champions League last year.
Against Rayados, yeah.
He said that I have 2 or 3 DPs on the field, and they have 10 DPs on the field and 7 TAM players on the bench. When you put it in those terms, it really opens your eyes to the differences in spending between the best teams. And I think that we're at a point now in MLS, we're at a real tipping point where you have some owners that are really, really trying to raise the bar and break free of these restrictions. And then you have some owners that maybe want to continue to taper it down a little bit. And so we'll see which forces at play win out there.
Who do you want to win that battle?
I think you know the answer to that one.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.